This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's going on, everybody? As we all know, mental health is a huge piece for me. And recently, as I become a better version of myself, I've decided that it's time for me to go to therapy because I understand how life can be a little overwhelming and we all need help navigating through the trenches of military service in and out of uniform. BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who is trained to listen and give you helpful, unbiased advice. First, all you got to do is go to their site. Matter of fact, you can use my link right here. Answer a few questions and BetterHelp will match you with a professional who has years of experience in helping people with struggles just like yours. You can do it all from your phone or computer via phone call or video chat or messaging, however you feel most comfortable. It's the easiest possible way to start talking to a therapist. You will be matched to a therapist usually within 48 hours so you can get started fast. Let BetterHelp connect you to a therapist who can support you all from the comfort of your home. Visit betterhelp.com/meechspeaks and enjoy a special discount on your first month.
Always say something. A prize, motherfucker.
Leave me alone. Go out west. Give me your phone. Going out west.
What's going on, everybody? It's that ordinary podcaster with the extraordinary thoughts that tells you to stop being great and be extraordinary. I'm Demetrius Thigpen, also known as Meech Speaks, and welcome back to another episode of the Talking Crazy podcast. Now, before we get started with this podcast, head on over to your favorite streaming platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, and leave this podcast an honest review because this podcast deserves to grow just as much as we do. All right, so I'm going to just go ahead and just say it because I don't know who needs to hear it, but last month was a complete and utter shit show. I'm telling you. Now, don't get me wrong. Before I even start, and I feel like I got to start it off just by saying this, so that way I can just clear the air a little bit. But I'm a top tier performer. All right. I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I wasn't born with generational wealth. I was born with a great work ethic. So one thing that I'm really good at is working. You know what I mean? I don't mind coming in early. Definitely don't mind staying late. Don't mind, working through child. Don't mind coming in on the weekends. I tell you right now, I have met every single mark of that last month, okay? That entire month, I have met every ounce of what my work ethic can produce. I came in on the weekends. I came in early. I stayed late. I worked through child. Now, I try to tell myself, hey, you're on an SDA. This comes with the territory. But see, this is the thing, and I really feel like I got to just get this off my chest. See, this is the thing. See, I'm on one of those SDAs where I can make my own schedule. I'm on one of those where it's really just up to me whether or not I'm successful or not. I'm on one of those SDAs where the only person I actually have to worry about is myself. And yet here I am killing myself every single day. Here I am coming in early when I know that I could have knocked that out throughout the day. Here I am coming in on the weekends when I know that that was a Monday situation. You know what I mean? I know for a fact that that was a Monday problem, but I made it a Sunday problem. I made it a Saturday problem. I know that it was a morning problem, but I made sure that I stayed late to deal with that problem. And I just want to say that because in a world where we constantly tell people to take breaks and we constantly tell people to chase after your dreams and constantly tell people to don't be a bitch, I just really just want to just say this because I don't know who needs to hear this, but take that fucking break. Take that break before you break. In one whole month, I have worked probably, and when I say this, I'm not exaggerating. In one whole month, I've probably worked more than what I've done in the past 6 months. And this is me coming from the base. You know what I mean? This is me fighting and training. And, you really don't realize how good you had it until you go into something else. Or let me rephrase that. You don't realize how much of a routine you had at a different location or in a different situation until you have to start something new. So I kept saying this is me just starting a new routine. This is me getting into a new rotation. This is me getting into a new rhythm. And finally, it hit me. I think it was probably, I want to say probably my fourth Sunday working. And for those who don't know, I'm on recruit duty, Recruiting duty is literally one of the hardest SDAs that you will ever work. Like, I know people will say things about being a drill instructor. I know people will say things about being on MSG. I know there's people that will say things about being a combat instructor. I promise you, being a recruiter is a completely different fucking beast. And here I am, my fourth weekend working. You know what I mean? Fourth weekend where I know for a fact I shouldn't have worked, but I chose to work it because I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Let's get the job done. And I said to myself, why are you doing this? Like, literally, I was driving and I sat to myself and I was like, why the fuck am I doing this? Like, there was no reason for me to be here. Why the hell am I here? And I bring that up, man, because when you're a hard worker, you know what I mean? Like, when you got a great work ethic and you hold yourself to a high pedestal and you want to work hard because you know that the hard work equates to success in the long term, you know what I mean? It gets to a point where you're almost like, you don't even realize how bad you're overworking yourself. You don't realize how bad you're overworking yourself. You don't realize the things that you neglect. You don't realize the things that you should have done, but you chose not to do it because, you know, it didn't really matter at that point. This job mattered more. And I had to tell myself, like, whoa, what are we doing? And then I took a step back and I was like, how many people are like me? You know, like, how many people are like me where we would rather work, get the job done, and say that we got the job done than to drag it out, quote unquote? How many people are like me where we pride ourselves on our work ethic and our ability to get the job done, that we neglect other things in our lives? Family, basic self-care, hobbies, physical health. I don't know who need to hear this, but I put on about 15 pounds since I've been out here. And I've only been out here for like 4.5 months. And the crazy part about it is that 15 pounds just came out of nowhere. It really came out of nowhere. And I remember just stepping on the scale casually and saw that I was like 197. I was like, whoa, where the fuck did that come from? And I had to tell myself, like, not only are you overworking yourself, but you are also becoming overweight. Like, this is not going to fucking happen. So with that being said, man, like, the first episode of November, oh man, I got to say that again. The first episode of November. All right. And it's November 20. My bad, I'm tripping. It's November 4th. That means that it's 25 days until my birthday. And when I say that, man, like, it's 25 days until my birthday, y'all better show me love. Y'all better shout me out. Y'all better shout this podcast out. Leave me a review. Leave me something. Because, man, it's another glorious day of just being alive. But for the first episode of November, we're talking about mission essentials, scheduling, and how to create a better balance with your life. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, before I talk about schedules or even work-life balance, what I really got to do is talk about objectives. Now, when we talk about objectives, we got to understand there's two different ones. You got your mission and you got your life. And when I say the mission, one thing that I have learned is that when I have a clear idea of what my objective is for the mission, the overall success of it goes up. Switch gears, when I have an objective of what my life is, you know what I mean? Like a clear objective of what my life's supposed to be and the things that I will do and won't do, my left and right lateral limits, the overall success does go up as well. So I will say that. You know, what are some things that you have to have on your table right then and there? Like, you have to have on your plate in order for the mission to be successful in your life. So when we talk about taskers, when we talk about work objectives, when we just talk about everyday, day-to-day shit that goes on in your life, what are some things that you have to have accomplished before, whether that's in the day, whether that's in the week, whether that's for the month? What are some things that you have to have accomplished? Now, for me, I would say in a day, definitely got to have at least 2 appointments. Got to have those 2 appointments to set me up for the next day. All right. Now, for the week, definitely got to have 2 NWAs, and that's new working applicants. All right. And that's people that have already said yes, and we're starting the process for them to become a United States Marine. And for the month, come on now, you already know I'm on recruiting duty. So that's 2 contracts that I have to have at minimum for the month. If I know that, right? If I know that, then everything else in my day can work around acquiring those things. You know what I mean? And when I say, when you know exactly what you need to have, you can dedicate the day, the week, the month to accomplishing those goals. versus just running around with your fucking head cut off like a damn chicken that was at a farm. Now, switch gears a little bit. What are some things that you have to have in your life in order to make it work? Now, once again, I'll use me as an example. In a week, I know for a fact that I have to record. All right? In that same week, I know that I need at least 2 hours to myself. Now, I try to add that, throughout the day, but one thing that I have learned is that I have to be flexible and I have to be able to just bend and go with the wind. So at least 3 times a week, I have to have at least 2 hours to myself. Reason why is because I know for a fact that I need to take a step back and decompress and just refocus on what the hell is going on around me. I bring that up, man, because of the simple fact that a lot of us don't actually have objectives for our lives. We just only have work objectives. If you work in a shop, you know that you're trying to close out a service request. If you work in any other facet, you know that it's take care of the Marines, take care of the mission, and then if you have enough time, you can take care of yourself. But if I ask you what are your objectives for your life, you wouldn't really have those. Do you set time out to go to the gym? Do you set time to just decompress when you're sitting in your car during lunch? Hell, do you even fucking take lunch? Are you setting a time where you need to get off of work at this particular time? And when I mean, I'm talking about 4:30 or at the latest, 6. What are your life objectives? And when you have these objectives, you have a better idea of what you should be doing throughout that day, week, or month. You're not necessarily coming in with your damn head cut off. These objectives, you know exactly what you need to accomplish, which means that you can orient your day, week, and month to accomplishing those objectives. All right, so now that we got our objectives, now we can talk about what a schedule looks like. Now, I will say this, man, without a good schedule, you know what I mean? Like without a good, solid schedule, you will start and end your day in pure fucking chaos. A good example of this, man, like, have you ever just met somebody who's constantly in a state of panic? You know what I mean? Like they're constantly in a state of panic. Like when they call you, you can actually hear the panic in their voice. Every tasker that they give out, it's almost like this state of just, we got to get this done. This has to happen. And it's like, bro, like, are you serious? Like, why is it always a fucking emergency? That means that they don't have a schedule for their entire day. Like they wake up, from the moment that they wake up to the moment that they go to sleep, they are literally in this state of frenzy all the time. So remember when I just talked about how, having objectives, they have objectives, but they don't have a plan on how to accomplish those objectives. When that tasker comes up that they can accomplish those objectives, that's when they're fucking taking it. And that's the reason why they're always in a constant state of panic. Now, I will say this though. When you create a schedule, understand that this schedule has to be flexible. Once again, we're in the military. So when I say that your schedule has got to be fucking flexible, understand that it may not be as solid as you want it to be. You may want to go to the gym every single day, but you might have to reduce that to 3 times a day. You may want to get off work at a certain time, but you also got to realize that you're still in the military. Taskers do come up. Shit does happen. So you might stay late a little bit. But the purpose of having a schedule, right? Like the purpose of having a schedule is to make sure that this isn't a constant thing. Another thing that you have to take into consideration is that you have to have solid boundaries when you want to have a solid schedule. And I'll say that again. You need to have solid boundaries if you want to have a solid schedule. See, the thing about having a schedule is that it just starts off as a blueprint. You know what I mean? It just starts off as like a plan that you created in your head. But if you don't have fucking boundaries, right, it is so easy for somebody to come in and tell you how your day's going to go. And then now you're going with the plan for them versus the plan for you. And what I mean by that, just like what I mentioned earlier, that person that's constantly in that state of frenzy, that's constantly in that state of panic, they're going to interject that shit onto you. Let me rephrase that. They're going to essentially pour that shit onto you. There it is right there. They're going to try to pour that shit onto you. They have objectives. They don't know exactly how to get to those objectives. They're just trying to get to those objectives by any means necessary, which means that they will put you in a state of panic too. They will call you up and like, hey, we got this going on. I need an answer right now. Now you running around with your damn head cut off. They come up calling you, hey, this tasker just came up. Hey, I need you to stay late. Dog, this shit can happen fucking tomorrow. This ain't a weekend problem. It's a Monday problem. So I will tell you this, you got to have boundaries. You know what I mean? You got to have boundaries. They call you talking about, hey, we need to get so-and-so so that way we can go ahead and work this weekend. No, we don't. No, we don't. We don't need to work this weekend, especially if we know for a fact that it's a Monday problem. Hey, I need you to work through child. Whoa. The same problem that's going to be here right now is going to be here in about 2 hours. We both understand that. Me working right now to get it done versus me working 2 hours from now to get it done does not matter. And I hate to break that to anybody who's listening, but sometimes you just got to understand. The problem that you got at fucking 10:59, I promise you that problem will be there at 1300, which means is that you can take a step back, refocus, sit in your car, eat, and then come back and knock that task out. As long as you are knocking out your overall objectives, you ain't got shit else to worry about. One thing that I have echoed throughout this entire episode is just take that break. I don't know who need to hear that, but if you are in one of those spots where you can get a 2-hour child or hour and 30-minute child, then take it. You know, you don't realize how much that hour and 30 minutes can actually do for you. And what I mean by that, I'm talking about just sitting in your car and refocusing, just realigning what the hell's going on, getting away from the overall chaos of what the office may bring, just sitting back and just taking in everything that's going on around you before you go on into the next day. I promise you, man, like that, those 2 hours are going to be very critical for you. Constantly being on go will burn you out the fastest. All right. And I'll say that again. If you're constantly on go, I promise you, you're not going to last long. Like if you're constantly on, oh, we got to knock this task out. I can't wait to do this. Now we're going to do this. I promise you're going to burn out real fast. So when I tell you to take that fucking break, I'm not lying. When I tell you to take that break, I'm not just being one of those gurus that says, hey, man, it's time to, take a step back and focus on our mental well-being. No, I'm telling you to take that fucking break because I know what happens when your battery dies down. All right. And speaking of battery, all of us have a phone. Imagine being on your phone all day. You will see your battery go from 100% to 94% to 87% to 75% to 60 to 50 to 40 to 30, 20, 10 until it's finally zero and it shuts down. So if you know that when your phone is starting to die out that you should put it on a charger, then you should also be able to recognize when your body is also burning out like that. See, when you're constantly on go, you start off at 100%. And then throughout the day, depending on what you're doing too, depending on what you're doing can also speed up the burnout. It can also speed it up. But depending on what you're doing, right? And how long you've been doing it, you're starting to die down a little bit. And then soon you're going to need to recharge. So when I tell you, man, like the importance of downtime is critical because that is the time where you're charging. That is the time when you're charging back up. Speaking of charging back up, it'll also prevent that lack of motivation. All right. For those who have never experienced what lack of motivation is, man, like you came into a situation, you were high tempo, you wanted to be there, you loved what you were doing, but because you were doing it so much, let me rephrase that, because you were constantly on a regular basis, now you fucking hate what you do. Now you don't want to do it. Now you dread actually doing it because of the simple fact that you do it all the time. That love that you have for it has faded away. And you don't even want to be bothered by it. Matter of fact, you don't even want to hear about it. That's because of the simple fact that you're burnt the fuck out. And lastly, and I don't know who need to hear this, but your physical health definitely does matter. All right. Going to the gym, eating right, sleeping, getting enough hours when you sleep. These are critical things. But most importantly, man, it prevents your body from fucking having like flu-like symptoms. Okay. Bro, I'm walking around. My head hurt. My throat messed up. I feel fatigue. I'm having body aches. I thought I was sick. No, I'm just stressed the fuck out. I'm burnt the hell out. That's why I'm feeling like this, because I'm not taking care of my body. You see what I'm saying? You remember when I had said early on in this episode, I had put on like 15 pounds? I had to take my fat ass to the gym and start getting back to a routine because of the simple fact that I was like, What I'm not about to do is walk around looking, what's that word? In uniform. Just looking just like, whoa, what's going on? Looking like some twine wrapped around some bread, just shit hanging all over the place. Like I can't let that happen. I say that because it's so easy for things like that to get away from you. And the one thing that I've realized is that if you don't make that time for downtime, things will start to get away from you. You know, that time with your family, that will get away from you. Those weekends that you cherish the most, those will get away from you. You know, your height and weight, you know, how much you pride yourself on how good you look in uniform, out of uniform, and just your overall physical fitness, that will actually get away from you. You know, those hobbies that you use to keep yourself sane, those will also get away from you. That time that you spent with your friends, that will get away from you as well. Next thing you know, you find yourself constantly at work trying to figure out exactly how to overcome the next obstacle or task, but yet you have not made time to actually have for downtime, and now you're constantly burnt out. So I will say this, man, always make time for downtime. And as we come to a close of this episode, the biggest thing that I really want anyone to take away from this episode is the simple fact of having a real work-life balance. I know we say that shit all the fucking time. Have a good work-life balance, but it's a real thing, all right? Understand what your objectives are in your life and at work. Understand how you can get to those objectives and create a real life schedule that's flexible, but at the exact same time is something that you can maintain and be consistent with. And lastly, always make time for good downtime, because at the end of the day, man, everybody wants you to get the task done, but nobody's going to ask you really how you're feeling. Nobody actually gives a fuck about that part. They just want to make sure that you can get the job done. So if you really want to get the job done, make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And just like that, another extraordinary thought left this ordinary mind. I hope you enjoyed this episode half as much as I enjoyed making it. Don't forget to head on over to your favorite streaming platform, whether that's Apple Podcasts or Spotify Podcasts, and leave this podcast an honest review, because this podcast deserves to grow just as much as we do. Also, don't forget to head on over to TikTok or Instagram and follow me at Meech Speaks. That's right, Meech Speaks. Meech is spelled Meech. Stay motivated, stay healthy. I'm out.